hello? I was joking. I'm not exactly sure what that music was, because that music is not at all what we're going to have for this conversation. You all know what you're going to get with me. Okay, first of all, I'm going to talk about some stuff that is not yet public. So, obvious statements. We're going to most likely deliver all the stuff I talk about. Some of it might change. You might have ideas or thoughts that change what we do and what our roadmap is. So, of course, I want to make sure that we are clear. This is where we're going. Some stuff might be altered. Okay, super high level. Let me. Firstly, I talked about this a little bit yesterday. Our roadmap is largely defined by you. Our roadmap is largely defined by where you're going and where you want to take your business. Now, we have many customers, many of you in this room are focused on the data warehouse and the data platforms that underpin some of your systems. Some of you in this room are focused on experimentation and new ideas that you're bringing to market. Some of you in this room are focused on the data products and the creation and management of data products. Some of you are focused on data curation, et cetera. We do our best in the areas where we will be differentiated and be successful. We do our best to build cool stuff for all of those personas and those business use cases. Where we're not differentiated, we make sure to try to leverage the best of breed in the market via our, what we call our open and connected strategy. I'm going to touch on that a little bit more in a second. But we have a lot of places where we listen to customers. And of course, we watch what the market's doing, we work with our partners, and we also watch what our competitors are doing and make sure that we continue to stand out and give you, the customers, a great solution for not just today, but even more so for tomorrow. I talked about this idea of open and connected. Let me zoom out, though, really quickly and say, when I'm leading the team and thinking about where are we going, I focus on three key areas. First of all, I focused on this space of trusted AI. This has evolved a little bit. This used to be advanced analytics. This used to be things around machine learning, et cetera. But trusted AI, the reason I focus here so much is because this is where you actually get value out of the data. We, as an industry, all of your companies, are hitting a point where the humans actually, in some cases, are the barrier to speed, the barrier to disruption. We used to build solutions that unlocked a human to look at it and make some decisions. More and more, though, we are building solutions that unlock applications that are driven by humans to be able to drive better experiences for your end customers. We're unlocking applications that support customer service. We're unlocking applications that support financial governance and controls. We're unlocking applications that support real-time decisioning for maybe a next best offer or next best action. So when we think about trusted AI, we think specifically about how are we unlocking humans, for sure, but how are we also building solutions that unlock the next generation of applications as well? And this includes the generative AI space, of course. Trusted AI for us is built on two major pillars. First of all, we want to make sure that for the enterprise, our focus is on large enterprises, that we have an efficient platform that meets price expectations and beats competition on price. So I focus on leading the team to say, where will we beat competition on price for the scale and performance that our Teradata system offers for large enterprises? We are not the right company for customers who maybe are a small company that has maybe a couple restaurants. Teradata is not the right solution for them because we focus on those really large solutions where we can differentiate. In addition to price performance, that's the one pillar, there's the other pillar of open and connected. This is a shift for us, and like I talked about a second ago, this is us saying where we are awesome, we will build solutions. But where we aren't differentiated, we will leverage the best in breed. We're going to talk about some of those today, but those are things like Anaconda, or Data Robot, or maybe Data IQ, or H2, or NIME for some of the data scientists' workbenches. Or maybe Jupyter Notebooks, or maybe DBT, or Airflow, or Airbyte. Again, places where you probably don't look to us be the experts in everything across the board. You look us to be experts at that engine, and we will partner to give great experiences in the rest of the ecosystem. This is an incredibly busy slide. I'm going to talk about most of this in our conversation today. Like we mentioned, like Matthew mentioned, we're going to go through at a high level a lot of things. We probably are not going to be able to go deep on everything, unfortunately, but my intent is to pepper you with a lot of ideas and a lot of thoughts of where we're going in the next year, and then you can take it and come back and say, like, I want to go deeper on these things. Maybe in an EBC, maybe in some other kind of briefing, et cetera, but you will be able to see where we're going and then take that back and say, I want to focus on this area. So without any further ado, let me jump into it. And you'll see that I've broken out by this trusted AI, enterprise price performance, and open and connected. Starting with our prioritized list in 2025. For me, if I talk about those pillars that we build on, remember those pillars of trusted AI, enterprise price performance, and open and connected, those are the pillars that we look at everything we do. For 2025, these are the 3 major product areas that we are prioritizing investment. We've got a lot of other stuff. Many of you are asking about other capabilities. We've got a lot of stuff on the roadmap, like you just saw. But these 3 areas are where we're putting our primary amount of investment. First of all, AI at scale. I'm not going to drain this. We've talked a lot about this throughout these last couple days. Ease of use. We have heard from you clearly that there are some things from an ease of use perspective that we do pretty good. There are a lot of things that we need to be better at. And so from an ease of use perspective, that ability for personas to move through classic, almost like jobs to be done, we need to make it easier to go from start to finish with ease of use. And then finally, open table formats. For us, and I'm going to talk about this, actually I'll talk about it right now because we won't drain the theory on this. For us though, this idea of open table formats, right this second, I know that most of your companies are looking at open table formats in some way. I've talked to most of your companies, and I know that most of your companies are not actively using open table formats in production today. So for us, we are saying, great. That means that now is the time that we need to hurry up and make sure that we've got very, very, very performant open table format capabilities. This is an evolution of NOS. From our NOS perspective, those of you who have used our native object capabilities where we can access object stores and file formats, we did that absolutely to be able to unlock workloads that were in object storage. But we didn't do it to actually run applications. We didn't have, many of you have told me, hey, you don't have the performance that I need to run applications. We are changing that philosophy with open table formats. We know that the need for data that is not in Teradata, the need for that data to be able to run applications like I talked about a second ago, is paramount for you. So we are continuing to invest and making open table formats performant, maybe not as performant as our block capabilities, being realistic, but performant for you to run applications against. Applications that run in near real time for these, especially for larger type analytic or large data swath type workloads, where object is perfect. So the takeaway here on these 3 areas, AI at scale, the ability to run where this future of AI is going, where you have lots, potentially millions of models that are able to be created, run, and operated, model ops. Ease of use, the ease of which you get from ideation to production. And then finally, open table formats, the ease of which you get not just Teradata data that's in Teradata, but data that's across your ecosystem, enabling you to have engines of choice or have data solutions or data platforms of choice. All right, jumping into trusted AI. I'm going to skip this. This is our, if you haven't seen this slide, this is our money slide in the context of all the stuff we do. Working left to right, we have lots of analytic functions that we have put into our engine in an MPP format. Many of you saw yesterday Lewis's example where he showed the performance of Spark and how it tops and how we are able to do 8x the amount of workload in 6x the time. Actually, 6x reduction in time. That'd be not the other way around. We do that because we have massively parallelized these in-database functions. We're able to use the power of Teradata and spread that out in an MPP fashion and run that much faster than any of the competition for these in-DB functions. And now I'm going to go over into the far right side, but we also know that sometimes you want to bring your own models. You don't want to be controlled or constrained to the functions that we've got. You want to bring your own stuff. Absolutely. Bring your own models. We have many, many ways in which you can bring models into the platform. We talked about that a lot. And then finally, in the middle is how you want to work. You want to use R, you want to use Python, you're used to using SAS. Fine, coming in with the languages. And then third-party tools. Your team members might be good with H2O. Your team members might like using something around either SageMaker or Vertex or OpenAI and the offerings from Azure and Azure AI. Fine. Use the tools of choice and integrate with the data in Teradata and the engine in Teradata. This slide is, again, a single point. I have a lot more of what we've got coming. You can see kind of as we build out from the partnerships that we've got, you can see us continuing to focus on relationships that are aligning and unlocking your users. We're trying to do our best to not create proprietary systems, and we're trying our best to not force some of your analytics users into our tool, but instead meet those users, your users, where they are. A couple things we've got going on, and I'm gonna skip this slide because I'm gonna go into detail on each of them. One of the things that we did was we said, hey, we have a lot of people that are used to using Spark and are using Python PySpark. How about we make it really easy to pull those into Teradata and leverage Teradata's native capabilities? We built automated capabilities for you to do just that. We had a push here around, on the left-hand side here are 4 different things that we are either have launched or are launching coming up here in the next couple quarters. First of all, widgets, which basically allow you to rapidly create code with just a single line entry. We've got the capabilities on our open source ML. This is essentially where we're taking open source, and there's multiple here, so we can go deeper with you where you need, but taking known open source ML functions that exist or open source toolkits that exist, and we're natively putting them into Teradata so that people who are used to using those open source capabilities can just use that exact same language inside of Teradata. AutoML is a growing space, so for those of you who have worked with us already, thank you. For those of you who are interested in making it easier to more, in kind of an automagic type way, be able to train models more rapidly without massive human intervention, we are building AutoML capabilities. And then finally, our KNIME integration, which is specifically around this kind of low-code, no-code type interface. For those of you who are used to using H2O, this is an even easier version of H2O. If you've used Amazon's Canvas, we have integrated with SageMaker Canvas for a while. This is another integration for those people who like using KNIME. Again, trying to bring Teradata to the people and the ways they're used to working. If you have someone who's just out of uni and they're used to using something like KNIME, or someone who is on the comp sci side or the data scientist side, and they're used to working with open source and they did that all in uni, why would I bring them out of like college and then say, now you got to go learn Teradata? We're doing our best to meet you where you are. And then finally, we talked a lot about generative AI on the stage. I want to stress, we do not believe that you will have applications that are only generative AI. Like, we are not trying to jump on this hype train, but we do believe that there is a significant amount of opportunity from a generative AI perspective to interface with your users, internal or external, doesn't matter, and then have other application-based solutions that sit behind that human almost interface on that front end, that natural language process, natural language creation, even potentially video and voice creation. So for us, our focus, when you hear us talk so much about generative AI, it is a piece of the puzzle around maybe you have something that's a generative AI front end, and you have some type of ARIMA forecasting on the back end, or you have some type of other statistical analysis that's giving the next best offer, or you have some type of geospatial function that is recommending where your delivery truck should go. Again, front-ending with a human interface, going back into known trusted machine learning capabilities or AI capabilities, and then delivering back to that end user again with generative AI, right? We're not saying just build a generative AI thing. When we think about generative AI, we build this around our open analytics frameworks. Many of you have heard about this who have worked with us on the AI side. This is where our underpinning ability to bring in external models, bring in external capabilities, and be able to connect up to other types of CPU, or sorry, processing unit type infrastructures, XPU, whatever. So whether it's GPU or DPU or FPGA or whatever, this is where we are able to bring in models and also bring in other compute capabilities to be able to more rapidly drive training. I don't believe I've got a slide on this. This is Anaconda, and then I jump into, that's Anaconda Nav. Again, I don't think I've got a slide on this. Pause, ignore this slide for a half second. I want to be really clear on something that we said on stage, just so there isn't confusion. First, because of our massively parallel architecture, we are able to fan out a lot of large-scale machine learning workloads, including training, on CPUs at a much lower cost than GPUs. We can do that today. And that's what you heard people talk about. We are able to drive some of this training on CPUs. I don't want you to hear, though, that we can do everything on CPU. Specifically, we are unable, just simply because of memory limitations, to train even medium-sized models, let alone large language models, on CPUs. This is the industry as challenging it is. And this is why we are so excited about our partnership with NVIDIA to be able to go even further for those customers who are saying, we want to be able to train or do inference with large language models. You probably, some of you might, some of you, I've heard some of you have plans, you probably won't train your own large language model. You probably won't fine-tune your own 150 billion parameter model. Probably not. But we will give you the ability if you need to, because that's our focus, is AI at scale. Much more likely, though, you will want to do some type of large-scale RAG, or you'll want to do some type of billions of vectors and have a huge vector capability with RAG capabilities coming back that will need really high-performance GPUs, possibly. We want to make sure you have the choice. For smaller machine learning and really small generative AI capabilities, do that today with CPUs at a lower cost. For larger things where you're like, no, actually, we need GPUs, we will make sure you have the capability. Unfortunately, for those of you who have already seen some of the supply chain challenges with these NVIDIA chips, it's not like we're going to magically get them there faster, but we will support them and make sure that you can do it in the cloud and on-prem. Okay, I messed up. Do I get to go back? Oh, I have power to go back. Very quickly, Anaconda is specifically around one of the providers of models that you can pull down. This is a great example of a partnership. I'm not going to go in deep in Anaconda proper. You can read that. But this is an example of a partnership that we are driving specifically to make your AI capabilities more turnkey. So for example, if you landed an on-prem AI solution, and you can immediately start what we're building in Q1 of next year, of 2025, what we're building is you'll be able to open that up and connect up and say, I want to grab a model from either Anaconda or Data Robot or some of our other partners and say, I'm just going to pull that in. Hugging Face, et cetera. We're working on the Hugging Face one right now. And just be able to pull that model in and start using it immediately so that you can get going quickly, rather than what you've seen in the past where, candidly, we know Teradata has been a lot of work to get it up and going. We're focusing on making these AI capabilities more turnkey, and our Anaconda partnership is one example of that. Knowledge intelligence with Ask AI. How many people have heard about Ask AI? Okay, super short version. What we're doing with Ask AI is basically a co-pilot for Teradata. We have, and we've talked with some of you about this, we have ideas and thoughts about what we could do to go even further in a data copilot that uses RAG to pull back data from you. Right now, though, candidly, we're not exactly clear on what you want versus Q for those of you who are using AWS, or versus the copilots and agents for those of you who are on the Microsoft stack. So we're working with you. If you have opinions or desires around a copilot-like capability, let us know, please talk with us, because you will help us shape it. Today, though, in production is our ability to do knowledge intelligence, which is basically where you say, tell me more about this query. Tell me more about this function around maybe TD plot, where I want to do dynamic plotting of data with machine learning in the background. It will explain to you how to use the tool, explain to you how to create queries. It'll explain to you the why behind some of the creations that we've had, et cetera. And so it makes it easier to use Teradata. Again, if you've got ideas that go even further into a copilot, we'd love to talk to you about that. AI Unlimited. AI Unlimited, Steve touched on this a little bit. AI Unlimited is really almost like a fundamental break in Teradata's thinking from where we have been in the past. Imagine that you took Teradata's engine, just our engine, and pulled it out and made it completely on demand. You made it have no data that it manages. You made it have no ecosystem around it. You don't need anything around workload management. You don't need anything around some type of data governance control, et cetera. You don't really need anything truly around, you still, let me be very careful there. You absolutely still need security, but the security is on the data that is somewhere else. This is just the engine. What we did is we built two things. We built one inside of, and I'm going to go forward just to see if I've got this. Yeah, okay. So the first thing that we did was we built it into the marketplace offerings. This is still in private preview, but any of you could work with us to sign up for this. You can pull this down from AWS or Azure. We're looking to put it on Google here shortly. And you're able to just have an offering where you spin up an engine, and you're just working in an notebook type experience, and you're saying I want this query to be run, blah, blah, blah. Here's the data. It's in some S3 bucket, or it's in some ADLS bucket. Doesn't matter. And then I want to go. And the thing will spin up, run, do what it needs to do, and then when you're done, you just turn it off. And the result set of whatever it is put back into that object store. This is a fundamental break for Teradata. We are still evolving exactly where we're going to meet the market and why we're going to have this differentiate from other solutions. But one of the areas, so if you've got ideas on that, we would love to talk with you about that. But one of the areas where we're already seeing traction is with Microsoft. Specifically, for those of you who are in Azure and have used Synapse, I'm not being negative on Microsoft. Microsoft has built it for a very specific target audience. They don't scale at all to the scale that we have. And so Microsoft, as we were working with them, early days, said, we're not exactly sure why we would have Teradata inside of Fabric. We already have our own data lakehouse engine. And we said, because we will scale further than you can. And so we, after a couple conversations and showing the size of customers, many of you, showing the size of customers, Microsoft was, and specifically Arun, who leads, he's a CVP over all of data. He was like, yeah, I get it, we'll put it into Fabric. So, and as a Fabric user, you have the ability to be working in Power BI, working in Excel. You have the ability to maybe use Purview to understand where the data catalog is in one lake. And you have the ability to say, this is a pretty complex, large query, like a really large analytical query, et cetera. I'm going to use Teradata's engine versus the Synapse engine and be able to run massive workloads inside of Fabric. This is evolving. Anybody who's tested Fabric, this is still early, still really early. But Fabric, we believe, is going to continue to drive the market. We believe that Fabric will continue to push AWS and Google Cloud to do cool things, which they aren't doing yet. And so we'll see Microsoft really push the envelope with this. And so we're excited to be one of the first launch partners with them on Fabric. I'm going to skip this for time. OK, enterprise price performance. I'm going to pause there. We're pivoting now. I've talked a lot about some of the stuff we've got going on. Again, just a teaser in the AI space. Now I'm going to pivot into price performance. These are some of the key architectures that we think about that you need to be driving in your own enterprise. This is not us, by the way. This is you telling us this. You telling us, if we're going to have a modern data architecture, a modern cloud-native architecture, we need to think about these things. We oftentimes will say things like, you need object storage. Easy, fine. You need elasticity. Fine. But it's so much more to get value out of a cloud-native architecture. And so we put this slide up just to say, we're thinking about this based on your feedback. So jumping in. What we did with Cloud Lake, many of you have heard about Vantage Cloud Lake. What we did with Cloud Lake is we said, up here on the left-hand side, we said, we're going to make sure that you have the classical capability that you come to expect from Teradata with very little to no impact to your current workloads. You do have to move around the ecosystem, of course. It's not like you just snap your finger and it's there. But the reality is you're able to move from on-prem to the cloud with almost zero change to your underlying applications. Config change, yes, but not actual code change around your underlying apps. We then said, we know that customers are going to still need that block storage, so we'll make sure to give it to them in that primary cluster, that EDW cluster, for lack of a better term. But we know there's these new clusters that people want. They want the multi-cluster capability so that they can allow a data scientist or some type of data explorer to go play. And so these are just examples. Obviously, it doesn't have to be a business unit, or it doesn't have to be some type of a business function or business outcome. But whatever it is, you can create these clusters to be able to do the work that you want to do for an experimental thing that might not be the EDW. So an AI type experiment, a machine learning type experiment, some other application. You might just be simply a workspace or almost like a sandbox where people can play. And you can spin up these clusters. Our intent is that most of these clusters will run against object storage, and specifically in the future against open table formats. Our intent is that you're able to have that persistent data be an object and be able to spin up and spin down whatever you need and be able to share that data across these compute engines, almost these AI or machine learning or sandbox types clusters. We built this specifically with intentionality around the experience that we think people will have. The experience of, I have an existing EDW that I've got years and years of work around. Great. We'll continue to support you in that like EDW type cluster. I've got some new experimental thing that I want to do. Great. We'll support you in these compute clusters where you can experiment and play. Or I actually have something very specific where I want GPUs in the cluster, and I need to do something significant from either an inference perspective or possibly even from a training perspective. Great. We'll allow that in these clusters. The intent behind all of this, though, is to give you a single ability to manage this environment, this ecosystem of environments you've got as the admins, and then on the user side to make it really easy to consume. We know that there's the need, obviously, to manage this system. So there's the dashboards, and we're going to continue to evolve this. I've heard some feedback very clearly from many of you, so I don't want to ignore that. around the existing viewpoint capabilities that we need to make sure are in that next generation console. We're going to keep evolving the console to be able to give you an amazing management, almost dashboard, as well as an end user dashboard for consumption. Whether that's systems dashboards for how the system is doing, or I believe I got financial. This is the system one, and I'm going to jump forward here. I'll let this play out. This is literally just I should have had this playing in the background. So system management around what's going on with the compute cluster, who's consuming what, how much is being consumed, what the consumption units are, et cetera. You have your consumption units versus fixed. And then I'll skip forward. And then financial governance as well. I don't have that slide here. OK, financial governance as well, which is how much am I spending? What is my forecast? Can you predict what my spend will be based on current levels, et cetera? All of this, I mentioned this a second ago, all of this intentionality around these different clusters and the environments is to give those customers who are still on-prem, and not everybody's here, but those customers who are on-prem the fastest path to the cloud. I think it's important to stress here, I don't care about going to the cloud in the context of just getting to the cloud. I care about unlocking some type of an experience. So for us, getting to the cloud is fine, you're there, great. Your EDW is now running in the cloud, great. But there's really no huge business benefit, though. For us, it's that idea of that, and now I can, and insert the next thing. Now I can unlock more users to experiment with the data. Now I can unlock more clusters that are confined and controlled, and I can give them the ability to go hog wild without having any risk around my EDW. So our intent around getting into the cloud quickly is to be able to unlock new use cases, not just run the EDW just the same way you run it on-prem. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, we do recognize and appreciate that not everybody and everything is going to be running inside of Teradata. I wish it was. I wish all of you would run your entire data ecosystem in Teradata. We know that's not real. So from that standpoint, we do also want to be good members of the ecosystem. We don't want to have the expectation that in order to use Teradata, you have to move all of your data to Teradata. That is not a viable option for you, we know. So instead of us saying, hey, do a bunch of exports and move it all into Teradata, we are also, and have continued to evolve, our query grid capabilities. For those of you who might have seen query grid a number of years ago, it wasn't as robust, I will say, as it is now, and it also wasn't as easy to implement as it is now. We still have a ways to go, for sure. Every product does, always. But our intention and our continued investment in query grid is to make it easier to get to other data and not move it. To be able to say, for example, to the Teradata system, I have a question, whatever it is, I need an answer, and turns out some of the data is in these other systems. I don't want to go copy that data and export that data all in. I just want to go ask Oracle or ask the Hadoop file system, whatever, like HDFS, and say, like, hey, if there has to be a Spark engine there, I get it, but hey, I've got a piece of data I need out of your system. Can you run this subset of the query, give me the result set, and then it will pull back the result set and aggregate that result set back to the customer. Intention here again is try to respect the laws of science around the speed of light. Try not to move all the data. Try to move exactly the results that you need. This works fantastic for smaller type queries or smaller type workloads that don't have constant data movement. Obviously, if you've got applications that are constantly requesting data, there's a data architecture side there. But we're trying to make sure we give you options with query grid to be able to have a very strong ecosystem and a query fabric across that ecosystem. This is actually a little bit old. I apologize. We've actually added more regions. One of the things that we do, this slide doesn't do a very good job of explaining it. It's all voiceover. One of the things that we spend a lot of time thinking about is how do we make sure that our environments are near yours? We want to make sure that you have the best possible experience between your applications. So we generally try to make sure that we are in every region that you are in. It might not be the same AZ, but certainly the same region, so that you have the lowest latency between systems. And this is true on AWS, Azure, and on Google Cloud. We are constantly launching new regions and capabilities so that we have our systems as closely co-located with your systems as possible to give you the best, again, performing applications. Now, we've been talking about enterprise price performance in the cloud this whole time. I'm now going to pivot over to our on-prem capabilities. Many of you have heard Steve and other people at Teradata say, we are going to be a cloud-first company. What he says, though, oftentimes, especially after people started saying, like, what about your on-prem offerings? He's been very clear, not a cloud-only company. We continue to invest in our on-prem capabilities. Our next generation IFX platform, we're right now in the middle of refreshing storage, and we just got done refreshing all of the compute. So we have the latest compute, and we'll be having the latest storage on the IFX platform in Q1 of next year. We also, though, have, this is the enhancements. Yep, great, good. We also have, we launched an EDW offering with Dell that we just got done refreshing this year, specifically on Dell's 16th gen hardware. In the Dell space, we are focusing on an EDW offering, but also some quick start offerings. And for those of you who have been asking us, when are you going to have the latest engine on Teradata? We are right now putting the final touches on 20.x on our Dell stack. Right now, we'll have then 20.x on IFX in the next, probably the next 1 to 2 quarters in 2025. So either Q1 or Q2. 2025, we're still locking that timeline down. Obviously, if we get done early, we're gonna launch early. But the big thing here is 20.x, I struggle talking about versions. Those of you who have been around Teradata for a long time, you're used to talking about versions. For those of you who want to think about a modern software company, us constantly talking about versions is not a very cool thing. But the reason why we're excited about 20.x is 20.x brings our open table format capabilities to the on-prem system. 20.x also will evolve the bring your own model, bring your own large language model as well in 2025 on-prem. So this is a foundation for our AI on-prem solution that we're launching next year. In addition, 20.x also brings more performance improvements, more security improvements, more improvements on stability, et cetera. So 20.x is not just a small launch for us. For those of you who were with us when we went from 16 to 17, there was a lot of additions. 20.x will be the same. This is a high level for our on-prem customers. This is a high level overview of our current roadmap for our on-prem products. You can see not just the Teradata EDW side, but you can also see some of the data protection sides as well. In addition, the Dell AI on-prem solution, I haven't talked about that a lot here, but I talked about that yesterday. This is specifically our turnkey AI solution on-prem. This is where we will be partnering. Right now, we're focused on partnering with Dell. We'll be partnering to launch a GPU-based system based on customer feedback. So being able to give you that ability to do, whether it's a regulatory reason, a security reason, or just a cost reason, be able to drive generative AI capabilities on-prem, again, in a turnkey fashion. All right, we did our enterprise price performance, trusted AI. Now let's quickly talk about open and connected. And I'm going to rip through this and just touch on this at a high level. We already talked about open table formats. I do not need to explain to you, because I hope that you already are there. Like, this is going to be a paradigm change inside of the data ecosystems. From a standpoint for our open table formats, we are focused on Iceberg and Delta. We might look at Hudi. We don't have, today, we have read-write capabilities on Iceberg and Delta for functional usage. It's not as performant as we want it, but if you need to test, we have that today. We are driving performance in the first half of 2025, and then we'll be driving that high performance probably in the back half of 2025 to actually run applications. If we have enough market demand, we will probably pursue Hudi, but right now, there isn't the market demand, candidly. It's Iceberg and Delta. I talked about the timeline already. This is a high-level timeline for us for Iceberg and Delta coming in 2025. As far as our open table formats, we can go deep, but this is, for those of you who are asking, hey, are you going to treat this like NOS? No, we are not. We are building this natively into our engine to make sure that we've got the performance and control in the engine, and so that we are able, from our native C code, being able to go directly out to the OTF so that we have extreme performance contrasted with maybe what we have done in the past on object. I'm not going to go over that just for time. OK. In addition to the work with open table format, we also know that there's a lot of other tools in the ecosystem that move data around in your environment. This might be ETL, ELT. This might be just simple stage and flow. It doesn't matter. And we're saying we recognize that there are tools out there that are candidly a lot better than maybe some of the basic tools that we had for data movement. So we're going to continue to support the tools we've got, of course, but we're investing in these third-party tools that are absolutely gaining market share. dbt is a huge player in the ELT space and continues to drive significant growth, both for simplification for customers and then growth for growth to support your growing data needs. Same conversation with Airbyte and Airflow, kind of working together. We usually see Airbyte and Airflow together, Airbyte doing the move, Airflow doing kind of that workflow management or workflow coordination, and we continue to invest in both Apache Airbyte and Airflow. When we think about moving data and we think about kind of the integration, here is an example of one of kind of the data architectures that could be for how you move data through the environment. This is not like you can see there's multiple paths here. This is not an absolute and certainly not something that we would say for every customer this is the way. But we're trying to highlight the high-level ideas of how do we think about data movement through an ecosystem utilizing some of these tools. All right. I talked about a lot. Like I said, I ripped through a lot so that we have a little bit of time. We have 10 minutes for question and answer. There's a whole lot more. I'm going to leave this slide up while we talk. There's a whole lot more that we've got coming in our 2025 roadmap. I didn't talk very much about ARM, for example. We continue to invest in ARM for even lower cost compute. I didn't talk very much about what we're doing with our vector database. I talked about that yesterday. We do vectors today. Generative AI needs a really strong vector solution. But as we scale generative AI in the coming years, we will need much better vector solutions than are available in the market today. That's where Teradata is going to differentiate. Not just on storage. It's not about storing. Anybody can store. But about searching potentially billions of vectors. I didn't talk about very much the capabilities that we have coming tied to high-performance compute. We keep investing in AI-based capabilities for our workload management. For those of you who have had the pleasure or pain, take your pick, of having to drive really aggressive workload management to eke out every last ounce of performance in your system, we're continuing to add more and more AI capabilities to make that easier. So much more is coming in addition to what we talked about today in our roadmap. There's a whole lot that I'm proud of, and I know our engineering team squirms every time, like, we're doing everything. That kind of that classic Minions, Gru, whatever. We're like, we're going to take the moon. But we're excited about winning where we will differentiate and then partnering where there's better solutions in the ecosystem. Okay, with that should be it. Q&A. Yeah, absolutely.
I got first question right here, Dan. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for all the information. Absolutely, it was a lot of information to consume. But I'm more focused on on-prem solutions right now. You did focus also on the hardware part as well with IntelliFlex. So can you speak a little bit more about how you are focusing on on-prem solutions more? Because I have heard a lot of cloud and AI enablement.
Yeah.
If you can talk more.
It turns out that Wall Street really likes us talking about cloud. Turns out. It turns out that Wall Street really likes us seeing numbers on the cloud side. So you'll keep hearing us talk about cloud for sure. However, our 10K is pretty clear. Like, a lot of our revenue comes from our on-prem customers. We are absolutely not abandoning or slowing anything in the on-prem space. We just got done, like I said, refreshing all the compute on IFX. So that platform will take us easily into sale into 2027, 2028, and into 2030 from a supportability perspective. So we are great on the current IFX platform. We also just refreshed the Dell platform. We're good there for a number of years. Dell's cycle is a little bit different, but we're good there for a number of years as well on the Dell side, not just for sale, but many years on the support side. Having said that, our focus right now is on building an amazing AI on-prem solution. And so our investment right now, the huge investment, is on what does an AI on-prem solution look like that is, again, that turnkey solution, different than an EDW, right? It's a different sale, different buyer oftentimes. Might not even be you as a buyer in your company. It might be a different person in your company. Again, though, making it amazing on the AI on-prem side. And then we will build, and this is now very forward-facing, but starting probably mid to end of next year, we will start development on our next generation IFX platform, which will be, remember we went from IFX 1 to IFX 2. We right now just did IFX, the refresh, we're going to call it IFX 2.6 probably. We will have the next generation, which will be maybe a rebrand, I don't know, but you can think about it like IFX 3.0 starting at the end of next, starting that development end of next year. Very, very long, robust roadmap for our on-prem platform.
So I've Ron Gorman from Union Pacific Railroad. So I have two questions. One related to Query Grid. So we're on Query Grid 3.
We're still on. Do you know what we're on, Matt? Actually, we're on 2.
Is Query Grid 3 available? I know it's been working on, but I haven't seen anything. It's
3
available.
is out. Okay.
Linux 9.
I should know that.
Linux 9. Is Linux 9, okay. And then my second question was, there's one product you didn't really talk about, but one that we do use, which is Exida, and was wondering, I know that that tends to be managed by Teradata, so when we do Exida policy server installs on that, do you have anything that you can say about that, or is that just kind of, I mean, we don't have issues with it, but kind of knowing maybe what roadmap you have for it, if it's just, hey, it's working as it should, we're just going to keep to evolve it to keep working with for our on-prem.
And it is exactly that. It's similar to what we do with Talus, similar to what we do with Sentry, similar to what we do with some of our other partners. Calibra and Elation, exactly the same as you said. We generally are customer-driven on those ones, where customers or partner-driven. If they say we have a new release, Informatica Cloud is an example of that. We'll work with them to get that. But generally, it is we drive the integration and the partnership, and then we do not make major change until there's a shift, customer or partner.
And that's Linux 9 as well?
When you say Linux 9...
I mean like the Linux 9 Oracle compatible or compliant. So you can install on Linux. So we install that on our hardware.
Yeah, I need to follow up with that, because so for us, we're focused on the SLES track on SUSE Linux, and we're going on SLES 15, so it's obviously different than, like, I'm assuming that there's the overarching standard you're talking about.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned both those, because both of those we install on our own hardware.
I'm going to follow up with you on that one.
Okay.
Yep. Can you make sure that I do?
Yes, sir.
I'll make sure. Thanks, Vince. Thank you. Yep. But absolutely, we'll follow up and get the right answer for you. Yeah.
Hi. I think it's so exciting to hear about the journey with the cloud and AI. You're operating in the stratosphere. I want to bring this conversation down to the ground.
Yeah.
I'm a DBA, and the Teradata tool evolution, you're tanking my productivity. And my frustration is off the charts.
Yeah.
First, we had Teradata Administrator. Great to be able to see the hierarchy and manage that way. That went away. Fine. We adapted. SQL Assistant, great. I could open multiple sessions, different platforms, because I need to navigate across multiple platforms. That's BAU work for me.
Yeah.
And that's going,
Yeah.
was stripped away. Studio, I want to cry.
Yeah. Yeah.
One session, shut it down, up. And VDE, I don't even want to mention, because that would be swear words. But is there any way that, I'm a DBA, but I've also been in an analytical role.
Yeah.
And even when the analytical teams are developing their models, they need a SQL assistant they loved, because they could do their ad hoc easily.
Yeah. Let me answer your question. Two parts of your question. I want to be really careful. I agree that I'm a little bit in the stratosphere on some of the things, but the problem that we have collectively, and I'm just going to be super transparent, is there are other people not in your group that are buying things that are not Teradata for these other stratosphere type workloads that I'm talking about. And unfortunately, we are eroding confidence and I speak to obviously team members like yourself, and then also the executives at your company, and they are saying to us, yeah, you're fine on the DB, on the EDW database side, but you're fine. It's running good. It's fine. Put it in the corner. But we're not going to use you for anything new or innovative. And so for us, you're hearing me talk about it so much because we, Teradata, need to be not just in the good EDW that runs and hums along well in the corner, but also in these evolutions of solutions that are going to our competitors. And so that's why you're hearing me talk so much about it, because I want to win, not just where we're strong, but also where the industry is continuing to go. So first of all, that's why I spend so much time on it.
Oh, I like
Now,
it. It's interesting.
yeah. Now, answering your question.
Okay.
We have not been super fantastic on editor, analyst, studio, SQL Assistant, and then some of the older tools that we have. Firstly, if you've ever read that book, like Crossing the Chasm or any of those things, like the idea of, or Innovator's Dilemma, the idea of like stuff that we built, like in some of these cases, over 2 decades ago, they're good tools and they have lots of functionality. And then we move to something else and we take away some of the stuff and we add some stuff, et cetera. We need to make sure that we give you the functionality. I literally had a conversation with the leader in my team. There's a lady named Leslie Mannion who's in charge of this space. She and I were going back and forth this morning on this. We candidly need to do a better job with how we collapse the functionality around Studio Assistant and Analyst and put that into a very usable editor. The editor today, the Eclipse-based editor, is okay. It's not as performant, it doesn't scale as much, and it doesn't have all the functionality. We hear you loud and clear, and we are working on a roadmap to give you a single, stable product.
Well, and I was really surprised in the literature, there was kind of a recommendation to consider a third-party tool, and that's a challenge in my org, because they're like, oh, Teradata's got something you can use, but they're not in the weeds with us.
Yes, and this is where, like, we should not be an IDE, straight up. Like, us as an IDE is a bad idea. However, we hear super good feedback and clear feedback from you that that's what you expect. And you want a good SQL IDE. So our plans were to use something like VS Code and make a really good plug-in there and make that really robust. We're probably going to still pursue that, but we hear you loud and clear on your ask, and so we also are working on a roadmap for a very strong, especially for our on-prem customers, a very strong IDE.
Thank you.
That combines those pieces. We hear that feedback a lot.
Hi, my name is Ram, and I'm from American Airlines. So we are on Vantage Enterprise. We also have our data lake on Delta Lake, basically.
So you're in Azure?
Azure, yeah. So the question I have is, when we talk about OTF, we are only talking about the VCL, like the Vantage Cloud Lake.
Yeah.
Do you have any plans to bring 20.0 on Enterprise, Vantage Enterprise?
Yeah, I would love to be able to tell you that we're going to have something coming there. I'd love to be able to tell you about a roadmap there. We're not quite yet able to commit on that, but that's absolutely feedback we've gotten very loud and clear.
Yeah. So the reason being is our current platform is very stable.
Yep.
Our business loves it. So we just don't want to go into Vantage Cloud Lake just to have that OTF functionality.
We understand.
Yeah.
Heard you loud and clear.
Okay.
Yep. And one thing that I think is really interesting for those customers who are on Databricks on Delta, there's no doubt that we love Databricks as a competitor. The reality though is that you are going to have to start thinking about architectures that allow for possibly multi-writer and multi-reader. This just be very intentional with how you think about those architectures as we go forward. This panacea right now, this panacea of everybody gets to write and everybody gets to read from this open table formats is not true. So again, just like the two wonderful words, cache and validation, just think effectively about what those architectures look like so you don't paint yourself into like a corner.
Ebony Batar, PNC Bank. Thanks, Dan. Great presentation, a lot of useful information. Again, we're a mostly on-prem company.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little
need
bit?
me to work on workload management, maybe?
Wink, wink.
We talked about that earlier.
Yeah. So looking to see where does Teradata stand with data sync between one data center and second data center, right? We face a lot of issues. You know, it's all manual stuff, manually keeping both databases in sync, and impacts us a lot during business continuity, right? When we have to do a plan failover, the data, you know, user roles, accounts, it's all mismatched. Anything coming in the pipeline, you know, things like Data Guard that Oracle has to kind of do that automatic synchronization.
Yeah. So the question is overall around, well, how do we think about business continuity, right? So a couple things. One, we have evolved and are continuing to evolve our capabilities for just classic backup recovery. So for those customers who don't have that high level RTO, RPO, backup recovery is a really good, financially, a very good option. We are evolving our business continuity manager capabilities. When I say evolving, I am happy that it is out. I'm happy that we have some customers using it very successfully. We know that we're still needing to evolve that and make that more robust, especially for really large customers. So business continuity manager is our long-term strategy for those lower RPO, lower RTO type requirements. There still is a significant amount of work around the ecosystem itself. And so, like right now, we don't, and like Data Guard, we don't exactly solve for your entire ecosystem. And so there's a lot of work still on you. Then we have a lot of consulting, not that I'm trying to sell our consulting. We have a lot of consulting that has done this effectively and built kind of frameworks and strategies. So we can talk about that, kind of the larger migration as well. But bar for classic low, and then BCM evolving for these low RTO, RPO type needs. Yeah.
All right, we'll do one more question over here.
Okay, hey, this is Vijay from Wells Fargo.
20.x version,
Yeah.
are there any enhancement in the threat optimizer to make some specific queries run faster? Because in previous versions, we have seen some new enhancements in optimizer, so existing queries will just run faster just by upgrading to that
Yeah.
version. Are there any kind of features in 20.x which will make certain queries run faster?
Yeah, we are right now in the middle of, the answer to your question is yes, for sure. We've made many, many, many optimizer enhancements. The flip side of this is pretty much every time we do a major release, we also change the underlying OS version. And almost every single time that we change the underlying OS version, there's a bunch of new security controls or security patches or security decisions, architecture changes that drives performance down. And so what we're doing right now is we are doing all of the benchmarking to understand for customers who are currently using Enterprise, understand that benchmark difference between 20x and 1720 because of both the changes. So yes, to the optimizer improvements, we're seeing how much they improve over the security slowdowns.
Will those enhancements be published?
The enhancements, we don't generally publish optimizer. We publish the big ones. The ones that we have patents around, we publish some of those, kind of like what we've done in the past. But for stuff that is kind of proprietary IP that is maybe not patentable for multiple reasons, we generally don't publish detail on that. Yeah, for competitive, obviously for competitive reasons, yeah. But the big ones we'll talk about for sure.
Do we have time for one more? Okay.
Hey, this is a question for Dan. The point that you talked about, which is interesting, where Street is expecting you guys to have more revenues coming from cloud channel,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Cloud AI. So having heard that, my question is, are there any specific expectations on how much the Street is expecting you to grow the revenues? Because if your focus is going to be there more to whatever the percentage, does that imply that your innovation dollars are going to go more and more and more into the cloud AI channel? And then does that mean the on-prem solution is going to see a plateau or kind of scaling back on the features?
Yeah.
Or are you going to maintain both
Yeah.
for near future in terms of innovation, the same level of capabilities?
We will absolutely maintain both for the foreseeable future, not even the near-term future. But I want to ask a question to highlight the why. How many of your companies are moving to the cloud? No, I'm not asking about EDW. I'm asking about your entire company. How many of your companies are moving solutions to the cloud? Every single one of your hands should be up, right? Because every single one of you are moving pieces to the cloud. It doesn't matter if it's EDW or not. The market believes that is the direction that everybody's going. And so the nuance on EDW is candidly lost on the market. So everybody's moving to the cloud. Yeah, go ahead.
So you asked the question of how many companies are going to the cloud. I don't think it is a choice given to the companies, right? It is just like iPhone 14, 15, 16, so on.
Yep.
The companies who are kind of the product companies innovating, they are moving forward and kind of cutting off the support. So
Yeah.
I think the DBA, whoever is here, and even our resident DBAs, if you give an option, they may not have the appetite or kind of see the perceived
Yeah.
value at this point in time.
I agree with
So-
I agree totally with what you're saying, but it doesn't matter the why. Like, it's happening, and so Wall Street is saying, that is the future. That's where everything's going. So Teradata, you better be there. Because all Wall Street cares about, not all, but generally all Wall Street cares about is like, what will your revenues look like in the future? Can I bet on you to keep on being a persistent force in the future? And if we don't have a very strong cloud story, the Wall Street will look at us as something that doesn't have that capability to go into the future. That's the why. However, I don't want anybody to think that that means that we are intentionally deprioritizing work on our on-prem capabilities. Our engine, we're making sure that our engine, that's why you're seeing 20x on our engine on-prem before you see it on enterprise. Our on-prem engine and our on-prem solutions, we are keeping those, the engine code consistent across both platforms, cloud and on-prem. We're continuing to invest in the performance of our on-prem capabilities and moving to newer technologies. Many of you know that today, for example, we're based around InfiniBand. But the evolution of Ethernet and the evolution of IP on top, I don't know if IP is evolving, that's probably not true, but the evolution of solutions that are enhancing IP, we're taking advantage of those in our next-gen research to make sure that we're using the fastest capabilities to build the most robust platforms, but also the most performant platforms on-prem. We will keep doing that. What you might see change, though, for us is you might see us say, like, but remember, for those of you who have been with Teradata a long time, we actually used to fab some of our own chipsets. We probably won't do that anymore. We probably may not even build our own solutions and then assemble them ourselves. That probably is not where you want Teradata to be spending time. But we will make sure that we invest in the engine, in the performance differentiation, in workload management, in the AI-based capabilities on workload management, et cetera, on-prem, and continue to evolve that, because that's where we will differentiate. So anytime you hear me talking about cloud, know that I am trying to figure out how to get a lot of that cool stuff that we're doing there, even elasticity, et cetera, on-prem in obviously different ways, but we're working to grow that. Long-winded answer, but we are committed for a decade plus. We have decade plus plans on-prem already.
All right, thank you everybody. I want to respect your time. As Dan said,